skep. Maar wat ek by Robbie opgetel het, hoekom nou as 'n mens leer ken het, daar in die restaurant in Meisenberg, het ek hom leer ken as iemand wat nog 'n passie het vir waarmee hy sy lewe besig was en dit nog steeds wil doen en eintlik nog plek soek om dit beter te doen. So dit was vir my iemand wat ek wat my aangespreek het en dit wat hy gedoen het my geweldig gehelp in ondersteuning van die goed wat mens sien. Dit net iemand anders 'n ander stem kon wees wat dit ook sien en by jou kon bevestig en ook kon 'n bietjie saam praat oor hoe doen mens, wat maak mens dan nou met wat ons moet doen. So hy het daai agtergrond en dis hoekom ons hom gevra het. Hy kan dalk net so vir 'n minuut bietjie meer van homself sê, van waar hy groot geword het en wat hy doen en sy vrou en sy kinders en so aan. En dan gee ek dit in sy hande oor.
Baie dankie Danny.
Okay. Hy wys nou maar net daai.
I hope it's okay for me to speak in English.
We've gotten used to it.
So yes, I grew up in Johannesburg, 30 years in Johannesburg. A background of a school teacher. I'm married to Leslie for 27 years, and we have 10 children together. As I was saying, to Grant, all naturally birthed. So my wife is something of a phenom, amazing. Spent 16 years in Malawi, and I think the connection here is the proximity between the work going on in the northeast of Mozambique and the Malawi, the central to south central area of Malawi, and the crossover of many peoples in that area. So yeah, I don't know what more to say on my background. I'm an ordained Baptist minister, but coming out of all sorts of different theologial backgrounds and churches. I grew up actually in a Catholic home. I have been a minister in a not an Anglican church, but a breakaway church from the Anglicans. I've been a pastor in a Baptist church. I've pastored a community church in Blantyre in Malawi for some time, and we are presently planting a church in Muizenberg called the Muses Bible Church. It's an evangelical independent church. So, and yes, I still have a passion. I spent much of my time in Malawi as well as teaching at a Bible college, preaching the gospel, teaching in various churches all over the country. And in the second half of my time in Malawi, I became much more involved with encouraging and pastoring pastors. So people that I built relationship at Bible college, following up on them, going to visit them in situ, in their place of ministry, supporting them practically, supporting them with spiritual issues, and even in the church. So that's my heart. I spent many of those years also doing research on the context and the people in Malawi. It became very obvious to me very early on that there were certain barriers to folk growing in their discipleship. So I think our brother here is absolutely right about the hunger that is in people in this context, a hunger for the word, a hunger to hear the word, and even an eagerness to respond. But once we start getting past that, and given that we're called to make disciples, not just converts, the issue of discipleship throws up challenges, and much of those challenges arises out of people's worldview. What actually makes them tick? How do they see the world? How do they understand the world? How do they interpret what's going on around them? Then there's the whole cultural aspect, the traditions, the practices, and all of that can sometimes stand as major obstacles for people really having a transformation of mind and heart and really kicking on in the discipleship. So yeah, that's by way of introduction. Okay, so I think what Donnie wanted me to talk about today was this issue of worldview. So I've prepared a little, can we go all the way back there to slide 1? I've prepared a little presentation. It's probably too much information, so we may skip over some of the slides. Can everybody get me in this English that I'm speaking? Is it too fast? Did I slow down? Okay. So yeah, the fact of the matter is worldview matters. It does matter. So I'm hoping to bring from my experience and from my research some insights into the worldview of the Chewa people of South Central Malawi. I can't speak with any authority on Mozambique, but Dani assures me that there's a major crossover.
Major.
Okay.
Major.
Yeah. So let's kick on with this. How do I move us?
Okay. Can I just share the screen? Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not in the right place now. Just want to share the screen first. Share. Send request. Ja, jy moet net daar vir my goedkeuring gee, dink ek.
Sorry, on a serious note, when should I start?
22.
22. 20.
Okay, it's not sharing there.
It's not coming on there.
Share. Okay. Can choose that one. Oh, then it share here. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I cannot share it the whole. If I press F5, sometimes you see.
Share my desktop, so you can send it to me.
And then now is it showing there? Okay.
Yeah, it's come up there. So to change the slide, I just need to click on here.
I believe so, yeah. Right?
Yeah,
Yes.
there we go. Okay, well, just to kick off, let me give you a very basic example of what I mean when I'm talking about worldview and how it matters. If you left this building today and you happen to stub your toe, your foot, on something that was sticking out of the ground, how would you process that? Probably, if you're anything like me, you might have to stifle a cry. Maybe you would be tempted to utter a swear word, but you would think, I wasn't watching where I was going. I've kicked my foot. I hope it's not going to cause me too much trouble down the line. If a Malawian person, a Chewa person, and actually most African people, if they go outside and they kick a stump or something sticking out of the ground, they're not going to just write it off as, well, that happened. I wasn't watching where I was going. It's silly that someone had that thing in the ground. They're going to turn more to be saying, why did that happen to me? That shouldn't have happened to me. What caused that to happen to me? Was there somebody behind this thing that caused me to stub my foot? Take that, let's extend that a little bit and say, okay, down the road, the foot becomes septic or there's some damage to the foot. There's then going to be, somebody must have caused this to happen, whether it was a person or it's a spiritual issue, it's a punishment, but there's a personal agency behind this thing that's happened to me. So you can see there's a very different way of thinking. And that's just one small example. Almost everything that we encounter, if we have a Western mindset, a linear mindset, a propositional mindset, we're thinking differently to an African person who has a much more holistic and networked kind of thinking and a meshing of the spiritual and the physical. We have a scientific explanation for everything. So sometimes even for spiritual things, we will find a way of explaining it empirically and scientifically. But an African person is not really interested in that. They're more interested in what's actually happening as these two worlds are enmeshed like this. Okay, so in simple terms, what is a worldview? It's the glasses through which people look, not what they look at. Let's just say the world out there is objective reality. It is what it is. This is a room out there, we have trees and whatever. That is what it is, but that's not what a worldview is. A worldview is how we look at that thing and interpret that thing. So, for example, that event I've just related, it's the interpretation of that that creates our worldview. So it's the view which a person has of his world, the way he interprets and understands the things which happen to him and to other people. A person's belief about what's real and what's not real. Therefore, one's worldview will determine the manner in which one construes the same set of objective events. For an African person, and this is very important from our perspective, religion underpins this worldview as a system of spiritual relationships which are maintained by rituals, the power of the word, and a variety of activities. So religion is almost like the hub of the wheel, and each spoke that goes out into a worldview stems from that religious hub, that numinous, that understanding of spiritual realities, that understanding that there are spiritual beings out there, and things aren't just what you see, but there's more to it than that.
I'll have to put it this way.
Okay. So as a definition from a missiologist by the name of Charles Kraft, a worldview is the central systemization of conceptions of reality to which the members of the culture assent, largely unconsciously, and from which stems their value system, touching, interacting with, and strongly influencing every other aspect of the culture. So we can see largely unconsciously. So people in general aren't going to sit down and say, let's formulate our worldview. No. They're going to imbibe that worldview from what they are seeing and hearing from their families, from the traditions that are passed down to them, from the religious practices that they've been involved in from when they were children, and so on and so forth. Okay, but it's influencing every aspect of culture. Okay. So how is a worldview actually formed? Well, it's formed through observation and reflection on that observation. It's formed through what is passed down to us, pertaining to or relating to an understanding of the world and how it works. So people will have certain what I call certain worldview motifs or themes, how they understand the world to work. And that is based on smaller groupings of understandings, which I've called explanatory assumptions that are explained by observation, discussion, and reflection. And when you start putting these things together, you can see that people's lives are governed by certain themes of understanding or certain directions of understanding, which are all built almost like a pyramid from the bottom up. And for the African person, that religion is right at the very center of that. So a central systemization or control panel is formed in somebody's mind, in somebody's heart. And that is the grid of reference. That's the lens. We talked about it. It's what you see. The lens is all these things that people have heard, experienced, discussed, reflected on, been told, and so on and so forth. That's a worldview. Okay. Why does it matter? Because worldview regulates our beliefs and how we behave. It regulates the culture. How? Well, these ideas that we have stimulate our traditions and our behavior and our practices. So when we want to say we want to see people change, how do we see people change? When we say we want to see somebody moving from position A, becoming a believer, becoming a born-again person, to position B, where they are actually a functioning disciple who is committed to Christ. Yeah. How do we actually get them? The later on, there's another slide saying we can't get them there, can we? We all agree that it's the work of the Spirit to get them there. But how can we facilitate better this process? So to transform, we have to subvert and change these assumptions, these themes, these motifs in their minds on the way they view the world. We need to change them. How do we change them? Well, let's look first before we go to how do we change them. The problem that we see, and Donna, you can bear me out here, Grant, you can bear me out here. The problem that we see in our context is that people have all sorts of different ideas and traditional religious ideas that they want to mix in with the Christianity. So we bring the gospel and people say yes because they have a hunger to hear the word. I want to follow, but what's really happening is there's a blending together of views from different philosophical and theological perspectives. They're coming with their traditional ideas and they're saying, how does this fit with what this pastor's preaching? How does this fit with what these people are doing? And how can we keep going with the one, but also include the other one? Okay, so the one example that I had there was when I got to Bible college, and I had a group of pastors around me, and the one guy had a collar on, an Anglican dog collar, and the people were asking him, why are you wearing that thing? And he was saying, no, I wear it because, it's a sign of my ordination in the church, but it's also a sign to the evil spirits that they can't touch me. I'm one of God's people, So that kind of got me thinking, okay, there's a lot going on here. This guy was studying at the time. He was studying theology. All right, so what does it look like, this syncretism? Well, some people just aren't born-again believers. So they don't really have an interest. They just there to get what they can get. But many actually may be born-again saved people. But what they've done is they've modified Christian doctrine that they're hearing and practice towards traditional religious practices. That's why in these contexts, we see all these prophets come to the prophet to get a word, because it comes out of their traditional religion where you can go and get a word from the seer. You can go and get a word from the diviner. Prosperity gospel. Because the understanding of salvation in the context we're talking about is all about a physical well-being here and now. It's not about sin. It's not about what the word talks about. It's about having everything I need for my life now. So the prosperity gospel is very popular there because it appeals to the people's traditional beliefs. Okay, I know I'm rushing here. Another way of doing it is sometimes people just say, well, we want to please people. In these cultures, pleasing people is very important. We want to please the pastor. We want to please the missionary. So we're going to say, yes, I believe in Jesus. And we're going to come to all the meetings. We're going to do what we're supposed to do. But actually, nothing's changed in our hearts. And no worldview change. Our understanding hasn't changed. The way we perceive the world hasn't changed because of Jesus. But we now have just superimposed or put one thing on top of the other. So if I'm at church, I do what the pastor tells me to do and what the people do. But then I go home and there I'm digging my field and I put the mankwala, I put the special medicine around the corners of my field to protect it from the rabbits that come in, and the spirits that come in the rabbits and the monkeys to steal my crop. Okay. So we have a dualism going on. Everyone's saying I'm a Christian, but most people still hold to their traditional beliefs. They believe in ancestral spirits, they believe in witchcraft, and there's no change. Whatever the context they're in, that's how they're going to live. All right. So some practical examples quickly. I've come across all of these. A pastor who's sweeping out his church sanctuary in the morning. I ask him, why are you doing this? No, well, I'm getting rid of the dust, but I'm also getting rid of any evil spirits that might be, so that we can worship nicely. A family who's brought their infant to be dedicated in the morning, but when you open the shirt, you can still see the charm, the protective charm around the infant's neck. The man who comes to communion, but then straight after that, he goes off to the witch doctor to get the medicine that he needs to protect his crops. All of these are examples I've seen or heard people sharing with me. The minister in training who goes home to his village, and when he's in his village, he participates in the offering to the ancestors, the living dead, for rand, because that's what the village is doing, and he doesn't want to be different to the village, so he does it. The church member who invokes a magic spell to lock his wife so she's not able to have intercourse, sexual relations while he's away on business. The elders who bury a charm in the pulpit, in the bricks of the pulpits. Often in Malawi, you'll find a brick pulpit. Now, the elders have buried a charm in there so that the preaching will be powerful and popular, and the numbers will be there at church. Yeah, these are real things. The faithful couple who insist that their teenage girl follows the traditional initiation practices in the village and sleeps with the hired hyena, the hired man who comes to sweep out any problems that there might be for her in the sexual arena. Okay, but they're coming to church. This couple, the family is coming to church. The witch doctor who was a member of a local church, I mean, she was presently at the time I interviewed her, okay, and she asked at the end of the interview, let's sing this hymn. It was very awkward, but yeah, that's so you can see how these things are put one on top of the other or meshed together. I need to hurry up. So what is our aim as missionaries and as people with a mission interest? We want to see transformation, don't we? We want to see people having a more biblical worldview, outlook on life, and a more biblical practice on life. Why? Because God has called us to this task. He's called us to his mission, Missio Dei. We are his hands and feet. We've been divinely sent. So this is what we want to do in word and deed. Our commission is to make disciples, not just converts. Taking too long. We can't save people. Only God can do that. We can't sanctify people. Only the Holy Spirit can do that. We can't even transform their thinking and behavior. All of this is the work of the Holy Spirit, and much of it demands their spirit-prompted, willful cooperation. That's just the sobering fact. So we can do as much work as we like to do, but if the Spirit of God is not working there, if he's not blowing there, it's not going to happen. So that's just a by the by. So we need to know that we're not going to succeed with every person. What can we do? We can provide fertile soil. We can provide fertile soil for God to do this work in his people. There's no substitute for prayer, preaching, teaching the Bible, relationship building, and practical demonstrations of love. It's true. There's no substitute for those things. That's what the Bible calls us to do. But how do we do it is the question. According to the people that we're ministering to, the people that we're serving. Leslie Newbigin said, every presentation of the gospel in words is conditioned by the culture of which those words are part. So when we preach the gospel, when we teach the word, we package it culturally, our culture, which doesn't necessarily come across in a way that the people, the receptor culture understands, or can actually access. So this becomes an obstacle. My observation, as well as many, is that Christianity in Malawi is a mile wide, like only an inch deep. And these are some of the challenges we face. So we need to acknowledge we're part of the problem. If we're not giving consideration to how other people think, how they learn, how they understand, what their background is, what their religious background is, and their cultural background is, we're not going to get down to the deep-seated worldview and be able to help to change that. So we must know and understand how a people thinks. We must present the gospel in understandable ways. Okay. So the first thing, and I see I'm going to have to cut this very short, but that's okay.
5 minutes extra.
Okay, thank you. The first thing is we have to understand the context. We have to study, what do people actually believe? How do they live? What are their traditional beliefs, rituals, and practices? And how do those impact their contemporary worship in Christian church? So that's exactly what I did. I was working a lot with various denominations, but there was one particular denomination known as the Zambezi Evangelical Church. And I did a lot of work with the pastors and a lot of work in the churches. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to study within this denomination. How are traditional beliefs and practices influencing their Christian worship? And what's the crossover? And that's what we need to do. obviously, at the end of the day, what do we want to do? We want to critique how people think and how they behave with what the Bible says. And we want to try and bring those two into contact so that they can reflect on that, and the Holy Spirit can do a work of changing where what they believe and how they do things is not in line with the biblical evidence, the biblical testimony. There needs to come change. It's just the same with us. It's been a shock to my system coming back to South Africa and seeing how steeped we are in certain traditions and cultural ways of thinking. Really. So it's no different. It's exactly the same. But wherever we are, as a pastor now in Muizenberg, I have to try and understand that context and the wide diversity of spirituality there. So it's no different. Okay. So, and then thirdly, once we understand something of the people and we understand that the word can actually speak into the situation and bring transformation as the Spirit does that, then we also need to look at how must we communicate these things? How do we communicate these truths, in a way that's understandable? What are the learning preferences and traits of the people that we're ministering to? Do I just stand up and preach propositional truth? Do I take Pauline doctrine and speak for 2 hours on that in the rural context? People are going to fall out of windows just like they did in the book of Acts. So no. So we have to say, no, we need to discover an effective way. So yeah, that's that example. Can move through that one I started with. So I want to just quickly present to you 8 themes of traditional religious thinking, worldview thinking of an ordinary Chewa person. Okay. Now, yeah, there they are. Okay. A transcendent supreme being. So a supreme being who is above, and yes, he's great, but he's not necessarily very involved in our daily lives. He's out there. In order to get to God, we use a number of intermediaries, a number of mediators, whether it's ancestors or whether it's witch doctors or whatever it is. Missionaries as well. Quite right. Exactly. The next one is cosmic holism. In fact, let's just take them one by one. Let's go slide by slide because there's a little bit more information on each slide. Okay, so we can see God exists, but he's remote. Worship is diffused through mediators, ancestors, representative spirits, human power specialists. God is even sometimes seen as slightly capricious. He's not consistent. He's not constant, and he's not faithful. If you look at the creation myths of the Chewa people, you'll find a God there who needed help to escape from his world that he created. And you'll find a God there that wanted to punish people, but then changed his mind. He needed a spider to spin a web for him and get him out of there. And so all of these thoughts have a bearing on how people understand God. Okay. If we look at the Chewa, they have a highly developed idea of the motherhood of God. Fathers in the Chewa culture are not always well respected. No. Because it's matrilocal and matrilineal. So it's the mother from where the source of everything comes. And the uncle on the mother's side is the one who deals with issues. So if you've got an issue in your marriage, you go to the uncle.
Make it worse, would say mother-in-law.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so I just want to say quickly on this slide, I'm not going to do this for all of them, but what we're looking to do is we're looking to build bridges. How do the people understand this? And how can we build a bridge from the biblical testimony, the truth of in the Bible, to how people understand? Okay, and then we're also looking for barriers and saying, I identify this barrier. How can we get around this barrier? So in the green, we have some barriers. God is unapproachable. The fatherhood of God is not easily understood. The Supreme Spirit can't indwell a man. That's not possible in the Chewa view. God may be capricious. On the positive side, God is spirit. We believe God is spirit. Jesus Christ is our mediator. They believe in mediators. God is a creator, nurturer, and cherisher of mankind. They believe that from their own side. So we're looking all the time for bridges and barriers. Now we can use those. So for the Chewa person, there's no distinction. There's no clear distinction. I've said that between physical and spiritual one. Everything has its place. There's a synthesis, and everything must be balanced in this synthesis between the spiritual and the natural. They believe in life force. Everybody has been given an energy or a life force by the Creator. But the thing is, this life force can either be increased or it can be decreased. You can increase it yourself by advancing in life. Somebody else could decrease it for you by taking some of your life force through nefarious means. I could take some of your strength if I'm using witchcraft rightly, and if I'm doing things right. So people again have to balance. The Chewa believe that resources aren't infinite. Resources are limited. Therefore, you have to try and keep enough. If you try and take too much, you're seen as maybe being evil and practicing evil. But if you're diminishing, you're seen as somebody else is training you. So it's this delicate balance the whole time. Suspicion is huge. Suspicion is huge. Somebody who's getting up there, you suspect them of something. Somebody who's going down there, you suspect them also of something. Okay. Anthropocentric, what does that mean? So, man, it's focused on man. Salvation is not focused on God. God doesn't save us from our sin. God doesn't redeem us from the problem that we have from birth. God does not have a long-term spiritual solution and an inheritance in heaven for us. There's no such eschatology in that thinking. There's no such concept of personal sin. I'm a sinner and I've done wrong and I need to be saved and God can save me. No, salvation for me is getting what I need. It's being healthy. It's being wealthy and it's being cared for. It's having enough food. We're talking about food. And to be protected. Thank you very much. To be protected from all that's going on around me and all the influences and the evil that can help me. So basically, we save ourselves. How do we save ourselves? We must appear to live in harmony with everybody and the cosmos around us. We must be humble, peaceable, and even obsequiously respectful to people. If you go and visit these countries, you'll see how people are. And everybody just says, well, they're very friendly people. It's true. I'm not trying to say they're not. They are very friendly people. But when you start looking underneath, you see why. Why are they doing this? It's not always the same face that's presented, though. So you'll see one face, but in a village or behind the scenes, it might be another one. They're using resources at their disposal to balance offense and defense. Defense is protection. Offense is let me get what I need. Defense is let me stop others from taking it from me. Okay. Community is huge. We know this. We are, therefore I am. So community values are major. And in community, there's a hierarchy. It's graded. You start with the dead, the long since dead, then the living dead, those who can still be remembered, then the living on earth. Okay, and the living on earth also has gradings according to the hierarchy. So you'll have the village headman, and then you'll have the chief, then you'll have the elders, then you'll have the older people, and so it goes. And this corporate community has mediators everywhere. We spoke about the uncles. You don't just try and sort out a problem. You go through the right channel to sort out a problem, whether that's the uncle or whether it's an ancestor. But they have various mediators to who you should go, and it's a taboo to try and jump the ladder. As Western people, we'll just go to the person who can help us best. You know, if we can go over the head of someone, if you like, we'll do it. But in this culture, it's really, really frowned upon. Don't jump rungs on the ladder.
Directly to God.
Directly to God is a no-no, because number one is unapproachable, and number two, no, you need to go through a mediator to get to him. This is why they're like the rain shrines. If you ask a Chewa person traditionally why, how do you get rain? No, God gives us rain. Okay, great. But so do you ask God for rain? Yeah, we ask God. How do you do that? No, well, we have a complex shrine to which we must go, and there we must offer sacrifices, libations to the ancestors, and the ancestors will then speak to God on our behalf, and God will send the rain. So yes, it's not direct. It's not direct. So it's a difficulty to get people to think of it in that way. Okay, sorry, we're nearly there. Traditional wisdom is a very, very big thing, and to be faithful to it. It's passed down from your mother, from your father, from your village, and that's the way you grow up, and that's what you value. So every area of life from being pregnant to death and beyond, has traditional values, traditional rituals and ceremonies that you're supposed to adhere to. And of course, all of these are rooted in the religious environment. For the Chewa people, they've also got institutions, religious institutions, like what they call Gule Wankulu, which is the Gule Wankulu is a representation of the spirits, the living dead, who actually police morals in the community. So they have to consult them to see who's doing what wrong, and so on and so forth. And of course, I've spoken about the rain shrines. Okay, witchcraft is everywhere. You can hear why. I think if you're listening to this presentation, you can understand why is witchcraft everywhere. It's a central means of explanation. Why did this happen? How did this happen to this person? Yeah, this is how. Because somebody put a curse on him. Because somebody went to the witch doctor and got a charm. So on and so forth. Okay.
Fear.
Fear is the driving thing. There it is at the bottom. Malawi is a country, Mozambique is a country full of the fear of witchcraft. And where does that all go? Well, my research took me back. And actually all comes back to the fear of death. All comes back to the fear of death. So, but fear is the thing that's driving this witchcraft. It's the thing that's driving people to feel they need to defend themselves. They need to protect themselves. They can't just stand alone. Even if they're Christians, God, God, yes, but I also need this. I also need this thing. I need this charm. I need this medicine. Okay, so, is a charm. Okay, so what is a charm? There's a definition of a charm. It's something somebody gets or makes, according to traditional wisdom, that has power to promote yourself or to protect yourself, or even to inflict harm on other people. If you're in a cycle, that revenge cycle. Because there's a cycle of magic, then counter magic. I've got magic against somebody. They've got counter magic to protect themselves. And then there's magic again. So, it's just this vicious cycle. So people need to have charms. They need to have medicine. All right. To achieve something, you need a charm. To be successful, you need a charm. For your exams, you need a charm. For having a child, you need a charm. For protection, you need a charm. Every area of life is covered by its own charms, from sex to travel to business to preaching to politics. And I've got a million stories in my books which come from my research, if you're interested to read some of these stories and see what's happening. Okay, let's just...
Ubiquitous.
Yeah, everywhere, all over. Yeah, so...
There was a part...
Okay, so it's all over the place. It's everywhere. Yeah. They look very different. So it could be a little pouch with some sticks in it. It's all sorts of it. It could be a little gourd with some medicine in it. So they look very different. Yeah. So I was also fascinated, and I had a look at a lot of different examples of charm. So it's more that they believe that it's imbued with some power, and then, yes, the traditional wisdom and the witch doctors tell them, no, you need this, and this. And then you bring it to me, and we'll imbue that power on that thing.
Snake skin and hair.
Yeah.
A stick in the woods.
That's it. So, I think I've said enough here. Yeah, so what we want to do is bring all these ideas and how people think into relation with what the Bible teaches. And so the best way to do that, obviously, if you've got 20, 30 years, is to work chronologically through the Bible. But not all of us have that amount of time, and not all the people have that amount of time. So we then begin to ask ourselves, well, what passages of Scripture, what books of the Bible, what particular themes in the Bible can most potently and profoundly speak into all of these different things that we're seeing on the ground? And we select those passages, and then we've got to bring them to the people in ways that the people can understand. Okay, so
I sometimes when I want to promote one idea, what I do is looking at what is the opposite in the community for that idea.
Right. Brilliant.
And then from that, so if you understand what is exactly the opposite, then you can put both ideas on the table and people can choose.
Yeah, and this is a great way of learning. This kind of discursive discussion way of learning. So presenting a case study. Look, this happened. What do you think about this? Now, look, this is what the word says. Let's discuss how the word actually speaks to this situation. So, of course, it's building bridges and breaking down barriers that we're looking at. So as we approach it from a scriptural perspective, we're saying what can help, what's going to speak to this particular situation. And we're saying also, I want to build a biblical worldview. How do I take that worldview and begin to reshape it, remold it, remake it, subvert or undercut the ideas that are unbiblical and replace them with ideas that are biblical, but ideas that are biblical that they can actually see have a bearing on their day-to-day life. Because that's what people want to see. They don't just want an idea. They're going to say to you, no, we've been doing it like this for all these years and it works for us. So we need to also keep the practical outworking always in mind. Like how does that actually play out in their lives?
And the opposition of the community to change.
Yeah, big challenge. Yeah, big challenge. So I think that's enough. Is that enough? I mean, I could have dealt with various passages and themes, but I don't think we have time for that.
I would suggest, can I maybe, Robbie, I want to allow 2 questions if there's any questions, but before we do, I would like to make a proposal, if it's possible, Robbie, we have a meeting in February again, that we continue this discussion because we definitely must have more time deliberating on this. Are you available in February?
Yeah, I'd love that, yeah.
Because end of February, someday, we're not sure whether it's the 27th or the 20th, so we will make sure, but there will be a next follow-up on this meeting. That's our annual meeting. So I suggest that we target that and we'll discuss this again.
I'll definitely come back to you on that, but yeah, provisioning, great.
There's many comments I think people would like to make. If you want to say something in the audience, you can just unmute yourself and ask a question. No.
There's so many things.
So many
Sorry,
Andries.
Herman, sorry, just quickly, would this be available? I don't want to go into the discussion now. Would this be available for us as missionaries to use? It's really, good stuff.
Yes, yeah, it will be. So I can leave the details of where you can get hold of the books online. Hard copies are very hard to get hold of because you'd have to go to Malawi for that. But there is African Books Collective where these books and others that would deal with similar issues are available online. Unfortunately, they are quite expensive, but they're available.
And can people communicate with your email?
Yes, I can leave my email for sure. Yeah.
Right, that will be part of the minutes that we will send to all of you.
Okay.
Dr. Beaton, thank you very much. I realize you're a doctor when I look at the book.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. It broadens one's minds, and one knows we experience it all, these barriers and bridges.
Yeah.
But you define it now in such a beautiful way that one can identify the bridges.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will definitely have Robbie back in February. He said it's fine with him.
I will ask him some of the information to put on the website also.
And this slides we can also send to people.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I think one can, if you want questions on the slide specific, then one can put that as questions next year, February, to discuss and give more time, an hour, for instance.
Yeah, that really works.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much. It was a well done introduction.